All right. So the things that hold us back. Has anything held you back lately from doing art?
Oh yeah, all the time. I live there. I'm always
Well,
yeah.
this is not the topic, but it is an image that I already had in this little PowerPoint, and I think identifying the things that hold you back
Hmm.
is crucial, because if you just keep going and you're like, oh, I meant to do art today and I didn't, but you don't know why you didn't do art, you don't know the things, the blue chairs that are holding you back, then you're just going to keep going in the same mentality, and you're going to keep making the same, setting the same priorities. So, I think for me, it's just always getting things done. Oh, I got to get this done first before I can
Yeah,
do that.
yeah.
Sometimes it's just irresponsibility. I can grab a 2 hour segment somewhere, even with the kids, even with a 2 year old. She'll sit with her paints for about 45 minutes. So I could do little pockets of work. Now I started a pastel. I'm going to share that with y'all the other day. So I can definitely jump in there and do a little bit of pastel work when I have her. And it's of her, of course. So I'm going to share that with you. Any things that you guys have that you can think of that hold you back?
Well, I'm the same situation, and because I have other things going on, I say, well, I need to do this before I do that, and so that's been my whole life story. I always got something else going on. So this is the most that I've spent in art for probably it's probably been about 25 years or more. So
Well,
so
you
I dabble in and out, but you know everything I do. You know what I do,
Yes, that's what I was
Christy.
going to say.
So
You're a productive
yeah,
girl. You're a musician. You're a
yeah,
writer. You're all those things. So you're doing all kinds of creative things, and we have to give ourselves credit for any creative endeavor that you're
right,
doing, not just art. But when you do art and you love it so much, you're like, oh, it just lights me up. Why didn't I spend a little bit of time on this every day, or
right, right.
plan for like Peach is the queen of this. She's made a commitment and a plan
Oh
to do art
my.
every day,
Oh my goodness, yes.
and you spur us on, Peach. So
I envy you. I envy you, Peach.
well,
Don't
and it's making a decision too,
Yeah, it
because
is.
we're all super busy, and no matter how old you are, or how many things you have going in your life, we can stay super busy, even if it's just being on a device or something, working on something.
Right.
That
Hmm.
you make a decision. Anybody else have anything that holds you back, and you want to just say it out loud?
I feel like work, like schoolwork, I had a lot this year, and I feel like sometimes I like compare myself, and I'm like, oh, well, like so and so is so much better at art, so why would I do it? Because like I'm not gonna be as good. But then I'm like, well, no, I should do it because I can help myself improve, and I'm trying to like be better at that. I'm like, okay, like now it's summer, less schoolwork. I can just try to do it every day, and I don't have to show anyone. I can just do it for myself.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
You,
Hmm.
you already know the answers, but somehow saying them out loud to yourself and
That's
to
exactly
us,
all that is what Miss Christie says. Like all that
Yeah,
you
it,
like
yeah.
yourself in a little journal.
yes,
Yeah, I need to keep doing that.
you don't have to show anybody else unless you want to show your work to
Hmm.
somebody. But yeah, Peach likes to get it out there. She puts it out
Oh,
there.
Even if it
yeah.
sucks, I like to get it out there.
You just
What
put it.
is this
She just
little girl's name? Shiva?
Shiva.
So
Your
she
mom's name is
sucks.
on there.
For every one person that's better than you, there are like 5,000 that are worse. So stop
Oh,
comparing.
yeah.
See, there's a good one.
That's good advice.
Good advice. That's good to think about.
Nobody can
Yeah,
do just what you can do. Only you can do that.
that's
Okay?
good.
And
Um,
it's a commitment you make to
That's
yourself.
good.
It's like, if this is something I really love to do, I'm going to make a commitment to myself that I want to do it.
Hmm.
I think I share this in every class. Here's another quote. But every time I come back from a workshop, I'm just fired up. I'm like, I'm going to paint every day. I'm going to paint. I'm going to make sure I do something artistic every day. And I start out really strong, and then I fizzle. The world
Yeah.
just crowds in and pushes it all back out again. It's almost like there's a battle against me doing art. I love this quote by Nora Roberts. It says, if you don't go after what you want, you'll never have it. If you don't ask, the answer's always no. If you don't step forward, you're always in the same place. I think that's a very powerful quote. And then Ernest Hemingway said, "My aim is to put down on paper what I see and what I feel in the best and simplest way." And there's a lot of information right now rolling around about Hemingway. So there's some documentaries and some things. Movie, I think there's a new movie or something about him. So don't know much about him, but it would be interesting to study him further. So what I had, any other tips about how to stay out of this rut before I move us on?
Just do it first thing in the morning. I try to get people to sit down wherever they are. I don't care where you are, be in your bedroom or in your kitchen, and just sketch for 10 minutes. You can do anything for 10 minutes before you do anything else. That's anything else. Just sketch a little something, a cup, a mug, a pen, something.
That's
Okay.
awesome.
That's good. Yeah, I'm starting to do that a little bit more. You know, if I don't get to anything big, I'll just take something and just kind of, even if I'm sitting there watching TV with my husband or just, I just kind of like do a little bit of something to get me in there. And I used to didn't do that. So.
Well, and posting on the Facebook group for us, because it's a private group too, it's not like you're putting it out there to everybody, but I've noticed it really spurs me on when people start to post their sketches that they're doing every day. I'm like, oh, I need to do that too. And I need to put my sketchbook by my bed or by where I sit in the morning so that it's right there and I don't forget it. But it's so good. It's such a good exercise for us, and it helps our spirits and our souls, makes us start the day better. It's just like a morning meditation. Do it along with your morning meditation. So here's what I read in one of my little books that I'm teaching a women's study on. It's not really a study. We're just reading this wonderful book together by Max Lucado. And this chapter was called Rediscovering Amazement. And I summarized, pardon me, I summarized some of it's a little short chapter, but I summarized a little bit of it, and I want to just read it to you. I know some people hate to be read to, but this is good because I did summarize it. He says, "From where I write, I can see several miracles." And then I just listed a couple. Ocean waves crashing on the sand, the miracle of color, blues separated only by the horizon. Another one is two bookends of life, a young mother pushing a baby carriage and an elderly, sorry, I typed this quick this morning, elderly gentleman seated on a bench, the two extremes of life. Behind them are three boys kicking a soccer ball and coordinating countless muscles and reflexes to do one task, to move a ball in the sand. All divine mysteries that stretch beyond our understanding and find their origins in another realm. Every bit as I don't know what that was supposed to be, as dividing seas, walking cripples, and empty tombs. In fact, it's the normality, not the uniqueness of God's miracles that causes them to be so staggering. God has opted to display his power daily. We are surrounded by miracles. He is throwing testimonies at us like fireworks. I love that image. Max is a very colorful writer. You can see what he's saying. He's very concise and quick with his descriptions and his writing. He's throwing testimonies at us like fireworks, each one exploding. God is, saying, God is, God is. We live in an art gallery of divine creativity. I love this. We are content to gaze only at the carpet sometimes. Or worse, we demand more. We want signs and proof and hat tricks. This has been a common theme for me lately of just, I've been talking about doing the 360, like just sit where you are and turn around. If you have a chair with that spins like this, turn around and look and just be grateful and thankful and find some miraculous thing all the way around you. And to try to live in that. We have our heads down, getting our stuff done. We miss all the beautiful things around us. So with that kind of in mind, I pulled up a couple of my favorite paintings that I have in my folders. You guys know I have like 50,000 images in my folders of artwork. This first one is by Dan Gerhardt. It's called The Visitor. And he has a little short video of him painting this. And he's got the model in his studio with a skylight on her. It's just spectacular. It's so, I have chill bumps when I think about watching his process. And it's beautiful. It's a miraculous type painting. It's what's in his spirit. And he's a very spiritual person anyway. And I know we represent different faiths, but this is across the board. The spiritual part of us is so important as we paint. What's inside comes out, right? So the visitor, and then on the right is Beth Carver, and she paints just everyday things. This one's called Morning Kiss. And it's just the colors in it, the way she's painted it, the sweetness on that mama's face, just has a miraculous, amazing, awe, drop your jaw feeling to me. Now, this is personal to me, so they may not affect you the way. Hey, Tanisha, and hey, Amy. So glad y'all are here. We are doing the little inspirational segment on rediscovering amazement. And so I was just talking about the miraculous in every direction when we turn around. Even just taking your hand and doing this, you know, we are a living miracle, our bodies are, and just learning to live in that and be grateful for it. So this is another quote from that book by Max Lucado, and he says, how have we grown so immune to awesomeness? Why are we so reluctant to be staggered or thunderstruck? Perhaps the frequency of the miracles blinds us to their beauty. Don't seasons come every year? Aren't there countless seashells or blossoms? The next time you hear a baby laugh or see an ocean wave, take note, pause, and listen as His Majesty whispers ever so gently, I'm here. And so I pulled this out, but just because I thought I know this is another Beth Carver, and she just has, I think I love these so much because they remind me of my grandmother. We used to go up north, and or Florida. She lived in Florida, and her and my granddad lived in Florida, and she was a big woman. And she, especially, there's some other ones of really big women on the beach, and it just reminds me of them. But it's just so fun and happy, to see them laughing. She's telling a joke or something, and she's laughing, and she's maybe gossiping. There's a whole story right there. It's a moment captured in time. So the other thing that we're going to talk about today in the animal drawing class is how to take a mental snapshot. And I've got some good tips for us, but I think these, I have chill bumps because this goes along with the animal thing, and I didn't plan it that way. So I feel like that's a divine thing as we meet together, because taking a mental snapshot, and then I had another book, and I'll talk about this later, but another one of his books called Eternal Instance, where you just freeze that moment in your mind because it was so important to you. It was so wonderful. And you learn how to take a mental snapshot of that in your mind, look at it, I'm going to give you some tips on that. But that's what Beth has done here, because I know these women didn't stand there on the beach with ice cream cones while she painted them. I mean, maybe, but they were dripping out all over the sand or something. But most likely she either used photographs or she has learned to capture wonderful moments or set them up. So any comments about, I've got a few more images to show you, but any comments about this? Does it ring true to your heart? Do you feel like you're able to do this?
Yeah, are you talking about remembering what you see and just drawing it? That's one thing I always wanted to do.
Well, that and just learning to wake up and be aware of things. Like,
right.
I was taking pictures of a wedding last week, a family member, and there was a photographer there too. She didn't really want me around her stuff, so it was fine. I stayed out of the way. But she was posing everybody according to, I guess, the way she's learned, which is what wedding photographers usually do. She was really and then she would make everybody wait while she looked through all the images to make sure everybody's eyes were closed. There was a weird disjoint to it. But I have trained myself to be looking around me all the time and capturing candid moments. Yeah. The bride and the groom were interacting with the baby. I'll have to show you some of those. But they were looking at this baby, and they were lit up because they want to have a baby soon. And the pictures of them lit up with this baby were so precious. So as an artist, as we wake up to the world around us, we're more likely to capture these wonderful things that we can paint. And if you have your phone in your hand, you grab them. You grab them right that moment. Or you learn to train your brain, to see them. I can't do that. I can't train my brain. I shouldn't say I can't do it. I have not taken the time to learn to do it. But to be able to do that along with photographs and capture these wonderful.
Well, you know what? When I went to visit up in the Amish country and sat with the Amish ladies, they don't like you taking pictures. So I wanted so bad to take pictures of them, and they didn't. I was told not to do that.
Right.
So I'm trying to remember and capture in my mind what I saw. I can still see it, but to draw it, I just kind of like never tapped into that part of my brain. So I was thumbing through the internet to see if I can see some pictures of an older lady and her daughters, something like that, where I can just kind of use that as a reference. But I do want to learn how to remember and put it down on paper.
Will they let you sketch them?
I don't know. I don't think so. I never thought about doing that. My first time visiting with them, I wanted to really honor their request, of what they are or how they are. When you go into that place, you don't want to not honor how they are.
I think it's a people thing. I don't think it's a steal your soul Native American thing. I think it's just a
oh no. It's
them.
It is. Yeah, they don't want to be noticed. I mean, even when they sang something for me, and they explained to me that they don't sing in harmonies when they're with the group, because it seems like they're trying to show off or trying to be bigger than everybody else. So they have to sing in unison. But when they get in with their families, they sing in harmony. And I wanted to sing harmony with the song that they were singing, but I didn't. Something told me not to just do that, And I found out later that was good. It must have been the Holy Spirit or something. So, yeah. But it was amazing. It was amazing.
And that's so awesome, because what that sounds like it did for you, Jackie, is it sparked ideas.
It did.
And many painters, and I'm always curious when I meet painters, or when we went to David Wright's studio, I wanted to know where his ideas came from, how he recreated these, because he was doing historical things. So he said, I have a whole barn full of props, and it takes time and energy to go back and recreate these scenes and make them totally yours. But sometimes, and I learned from Margaret Dyer, she would just ask somebody, can I, you take the picture when you get the candid moment, and then say, I'm a painter. I just, kind of eavesdropped on you. And I've done that many times, and people are very happy for you to do that. In fact, Denise has done it with some homeless people before. And I think she went back and gave them a copy of the sketch or something. And so there's lots of different things that you can do. That you can, you can tweak it, but just to be awake is really what I'm emphasizing here. Awake to the world around you. And us, there's times to pose your model, but when I was looking back through here to find these emotional, beautiful things that were soul paintings, the little posed models are just kind of bleh, they're one thing. They're recording a moment in time for somebody's, heirloom painting, which is fine, but usually they lack emotion, and they lack the the beauty of the miraculous and the awesomeness. Let me share the screen again. This is Carl von Marr, who lived back 1900s, but he was I believe Potast's teacher. I have to go back and do my research again, but this is just a little segment from one of his paintings called Adoration. And he had to set this up, and then it's like fire lit. It's like candle lit. It's so beautiful. But what emotion and tenderness and beauty. Look at that little heads turn in different ways. Like this little child is looking away, and the rest of them are looking at something. Like, I guess it's the Christ child or something. I didn't even put the bigger painting on here. Here are some photographs of my little girl, of course, my little granddaughter. Okay, so this is, a friend came over with a bunny that's their pet. This bunny lives in their house like a cat and runs around and has a litter box. And I don't know that I'll paint this, but these two girls on the swing and Desi looking at that bunny, is that not precious?
That is precious.
I mean, her eyes are just so lit up. So I haven't started painting that, but these are some of my favorite shots of her. I went to have a whole folder, of course, of hundreds of shots of her. So I grabbed 2 hours the other night, right before bedtime, and I used pastels, and I've only gotten started on this, but I'm starting a little triptych of her, and it's too harsh right now. Her little eyes are real starey and glary, and it's the first stage. But it makes me so happy. These faces make me so happy. And so this is what I'm talking about. I have a little story for each one of these. I'm not going to bore you with the stories, but they are moments frozen in time with her because she is so full of joy. Even though her mama has run off and left her, we are trying to love her so much that rejection doesn't sit on her.
Oh my goodness.
And so that's why this is so important to me, that she sees how, loved she is. All the videos I take of her, all the pictures I take of her. She sees that just love is poured all over her.
Oh yeah.
So
we see it.
Well, I know you guys bear with me, but
I love it. No, I love it.
Well, thank you. And I have family members that, like my daddy, he adores her. And she's finally gotten so comfortable with him that she goes running up to him, Papa, Papa. And he loves seeing the videos and pictures of her every week. So, there's more reasons. We don't know sometimes why the compulsion we have in us is so important.
Yeah.
We don't know. I don't even know sometimes until further down the road that these pictures I've taken, or maybe someone has passed and you've captured moments in their life that I have given multitudes of photos to people for their funerals because they don't have family photos.
Yeah.
Nowadays people do more, but even though they have a camera in their hand, they're not taking them.
Right.
So when we develop our eye for capturing these precious moments, I think it's just more going on than we realize sometimes. So that's really all I had. Just rediscovering amazement. It takes some diligence. It takes some effort to train yourself to see differently and to pay attention. Some people are better at paying attention to what's going on around. And others are like, I can only talk to you right now and I can only see you and I have no clue what's going on in the rest of the world. But I believe as artists we can retrain ourselves to be more, what would be the word? I don't know what it would be, but...
Observant.
Observant. There you go. There you go. Awesome. So any other last comments about that? I stayed within my realm here of about 20, 30 minutes.
I was thinking about this and like how everyone's own life is their own like movie, and like in movies when you're looking at a movie you see like there's like this beautiful moment, and I feel like sometimes I have those moments, and like an example, me and my baby cousin, we were swinging on the swing and it was like the sunlight hit her hair and it was going through her hair, and I was thinking like this is such a beautiful moment. And I could paint this because I was really like looking at her intently and thinking about it, like how like wonderful the colors look on her. Or me and my mom were walking outside and there was like purple on her face, and I was like, just like Miss Christie, there's like purple on your face. You put it in a painting. And I feel like we can do that because we all like think of the special moments, and I'm trying to be more aware of them to be able to paint them, even though it's kind of hard, but I think that's just really beautiful.
And I love that, Shiva. I love that. And we have more. I cannot tell you, when I first started doing art in the 90s, I had a little Nikon, one of the first digital cameras, but it would twist. And I could lay it in my lap and twist it and look down in the viewfinder and sneak up and take pictures. of things that were going on, because people get real, they go cheese, or they do some corny thing
I
when you
know
try
it.
to take a picture of them. But I remember also in the museums, I was so excited about the paintings that I saw, that I was trying to take pictures of them so that I could remember them and keep them in my mind and maybe study them or use them, because a lot of the museums I went to, they didn't have images for you to buy or look at. So I was constantly sneaking around trying to get these good pictures, and I would have to hide my camera when I went in the museums, you know, because especially museums in Tennessee wouldn't let you ever take pictures or get near the painting or anything. But now it's
Right.
so easy because we have these wonderful cameras on our phones all the time, 24/7. And we really are blessed to have all this technology. And we can project them onto these beautiful 9K monitors. And it's almost as if we're working from life. In fact, I said this last week, but one of the new Samsung phones, or one of the new phones, has like 9K video on it. And you can freeze frame the video. And people don't even know you're taking a picture of them, because you're just looking at, you're just holding your camera like this, your phone like this, as if you were looking at it. And so it's really easy to capture things. Yeah, I will tell you, I have to say that as a teacher, to get permission before you take a picture of a stranger or something like that, maybe, or just be careful, or maybe not, you know. Are they ever going to see it? I don't know, but I have to say that as a disclaimer.
Why do you need permission?
Yeah.
Of a minor, of their child,
Yes.
but if it's a grown up, you don't need permission.
And if you're just capturing a moment, it
Yeah.
doesn't really have to look exactly like that person. So, you know, who's going to know? And but again, it's just waking yourself up to the things that are happening around us, and being amazed by it, because your amazement will come through in your artwork. Your joy in what you're seeing and observing and capturing will come through as you paint, no matter what. Even if it's not technically beautiful, like Kinsler said when he did John Wayne. I refer to this a lot. He said, I went back later and I measured all that out, and it was way off. But when I delivered that portrait of John Wayne, his son said, you captured him like no, and he got sent paintings almost every day by artists wanting them to, you know, to receive this painting and have some notoriety. This one, even though it wasn't accurate, remember I said Kinsler noted that he put his hands on his hips often. And when he asked him, John Wayne, why he thought he did that, he said, you know, I don't know. I've never really paid attention. But he said, I guess it's from my football days. He said, I used to stand like that with my, you know, football stuff on. So anyway, Kinsler was observant to capture his body language, the things that made him him, and not just a technical recreation of a photograph in front of him. So anyway.
Well, I'm anxious for you to show us how to do, or show me how to do that, because sometimes I can look at something like lickety split and it's gone, you know, or maybe a hummingbird coming to humming. I saw one yesterday and I got so excited, and I tried to go for my camera. He was gone, you know, so I was like, oh man, because I love hummingbirds. So, you know, it seems just, sometimes you notice stuff is so like for just a quick second.
Yep.
And then you don't, you know, so I want to know how to get it out of here.
And you know, if you have an iPhone, you just wake it up and you just swipe, and there's your camera. And a lot of times I forget that, and I go trying to click, click, click. You open it up and swipe, and your camera's there immediately. So take a video, or take a continuous, you know, get your continuous photo going so that you can capture all those freeze frames on something that's moving really fast. Another thing we're going to look at. Say it again.
Keep the phone with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where the birds are, and then go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm saving it's about time for me to get a new phone, because I've got an 8 Plus, so I'm way behind. But it's worth it to me. It's a tool for me to have a good phone with a good camera on it, and then put a good case on it so I don't break it. I can't tell you how many people I see with broken screens on their phone, and I just got a big old ugly clunky case on mine, but it protects my phone because I do have it with me all the time, and I'm dropping it and everything else. So, and Shiva, I know you have to have a beautiful case, so I'm not talking to you, but
Me?
Yes, look, I know those girls
The
in their
military
phones.
grade case.
Military, yeah, yeah. They're not very cute, Shiva. I know.
Oh, it isn't cute.
So part of what I want to share with you guys today in this is also capturing action. So we'll talk a little bit about that. What I'm going to do. Can y'all see it? Okay. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to flip through and show you some animal paintings that I love. There's a million. I think I shared this last week, but this is Frank G. The Little Ducks. This is another painter. Mackenzie Fisk is her name. And she's got her little watermark down here on the bottom. Just whimsical, like an illustration type of a painting. And then on the right is Romel de la Torre that I did a workshop with. And he's a wonderful painter. And he captures some really beautiful things as well. This next one is Kathleen Dunphy. And I love, look at the purple on the back of the horse. The purples. Look at the greens. Now, there's green down here because there's grass all around these horses. Purple in the tail here on the left. Look at this bright spot of red in the mane and purple. Look at the snout. It's not just gray. It's got a real cool tint to it that's got some beautiful color in it. Look at the shadow underneath, purple. It's a soft, lovely painting. The focal point, of course, is right here, almost smack dab in the middle of the painting, which sometimes is a no-no. But there's no rules. You do whatever you want to. But look how sharp. This is the most contrasty part of the painting as well, this white muzzle, his nose against this other horse. And we're going to talk a little bit about simplicity and complexity and putting those two together, like putting something really complex next to something really simple and how that is so effective in your paintings. This is another one on the left by Kathleen Dunphy. What do you note about her work? What stands out to you?
It's soft, very contrasting too.
Very soft. These two, there's almost a story there. It's almost like they're visiting. You know, they're not just, and there's movement. So how did she capture movement here? What are some things that she did to imply movement, I should say?
Hoofs, wind, little breeze in the hair.
And one of the horse's legs are up, like it's moving.
One of the horses, well, yeah, his hoof is lifted. Notice this front hoof is much sharper on the left bottom than the rest of them. They're all kind of in dust. Dust is another way. We'll look at some more paintings, but dust implies movement. So if everything was all sharp and contrasty here on their feet, they would just look stagnant. So I just love it. I love the perspective and these trees and stuff way in the background. There's a lot of atmosphere here. And that's what makes it beautiful. And here's the focal point. You travel here in their faces and then around to the foot that's moving. So sort of a circular and then spirals down to the foot. On the right is a painting by Amanda Lovett. Don't know her real well, but I see her post sometimes. What implies movement here?
Hair.
Yeah.
And the wind.
And the foot going forward. You can see that leg moving forward. And look at the beautiful color she's chosen to put down here on the bottom. Likely that wasn't there, but I know some of the other paintings I've seen of hers, she uses a lot of beautiful color. So just adding that little bit of purple. The purple is mimicked over here sort of in the pants, in the foot, a little bit of purple in this white shirt. And there's some movement up here. Look, almost like radiating rays of something here that all radiate from the horse's head. Here's another one, and I've got a lot of images from her, Marina Dial. She paints, I'm not sure how to pronounce her name. Look her up if you don't see her or don't know her work. She does wonderful paintings there, and she paints the mat board on there. It's trompe l'oeil, fool the eye types of paintings.
How do you spell her last name? I can't quite see.
It's Dieul, and her first name is Marina, like a boat Marina.
Right, got it.
Check her out. You're going to love it. I'll be showing you some more of these through the upcoming weeks as we're looking at animals. She's very photorealistic. She's like Camille Engel.
Yeah.
And how realistic she is with her painting. And I want to show you a variety of animal paintings because everybody's so different. This one on the right, and I'm sorry I didn't get a name for this one. It's when I was looking at fur or something, I found this one. So this is a watercolor, very loose and impressionistic. And this is by Chad Popple is his name. And I use this when I teach on color. Seeing color, learning to see color. I love all the colors in the snow, the colors in the bunny. I mean, look under the bunny's stomach, how orange and yellow and blue. I mean, this is a white rabbit, but there's not a speck of white anywhere on this rabbit or on the snow. The snow is cool and warm tones, and there's so much action in this. So I don't know if he took a photograph of this. He couldn't have sat out there and painted it, but I do know that he probably has painted outdoors enough to know to be able to see color and record beautiful color, because the photograph would not have captured all this color on this snow. Here's another one by Pratt Creek Art, and I can't read the
Moulton?
Moulton or Yolton. I'll try to find out exactly who I didn't have it written in my image title. I usually in the file name, but it's just a different way of painting, and it's very loose. You can see that he or she used a orange underpainting. See all that orange that's glowing through, and then almost looks like palette knife work. Really blocky, strokey work. But I love it. It's very different. And then this is Kotlin BOW is the name that was on it. Now it looks like something else on the bottom. But a lot of times this is more like an illustration, but it's a different kind of an animal. I mean, it's a fish painting, but he does a lot of fly fishing and those type of paintings. And usually they're almost all black and white, and then the fish is in color. So it's just a different style.
Look at the fingers, the hands. Just for a second. The way he did that, it's perfect.
It is. So he's an excellent draftsman. Yeah, they're perfect, and they're very simply stated. And these are watercolor. So very, very blocky and simple. Look at the bushes in the back. You've got your dark, medium light on these bushes. Very simple and blocky. Nice work. I'll try to get that artist's name. I just pulled these in right before class started. These are a cow series that Dawn Whitelaw did. And she paints, from life. So I love her use of color. And these help me if I did cow paintings a few years ago for the Cattlemen's convention, and I got interested in cows all of a sudden, and had to go find some references for cows. So these are some that I had, but especially this white cow. Look at all the underbelly underplanes have cool grass tones in them, mixed in with some purples. So if you look on the color wheel, this lavender and this green are across from each other in the color wheel. Very beautiful. And Dawn is a really good with color. She's a great colorist. Studied color for a long time. This is an Old Masters painting of cows by Constant Troyon. 1800s he lived, or she. And I like the sketches. So here you go with taking those mental snapshots and doing little studies. And along that same vein, excuse me so much here, is Ren Port is have this huge book in the studio. Shiva, I probably pulled it out for you one time to do some animal paintings from. It's huge. It's a coffee table book. He is a Dutch painter that lived on a farm. I think he's still alive. And his drawings and studies are just fabulous. And he writes little notes in there, like Denise does with her little sketchbook journal. But just fascinating. You know, he knows about farm life. He knows about animals. He's painting what he knows. So those are just some little beautiful, different, very different types of animal paintings. And what I wanted to show you, and these are all things you can do on your own. In fact, the image I sent you has the website. The email I sent you last night has this website in it. I don't think it's a clickable link. I forgot to put that in, but it's Aaron Blaze. Shiva, I think I've used this in class before, so you'll probably be reminded of it, but it's so good to watch it again. And I know you can watch these on your own, but there's something about when we watch together, we stop to do some of the exercises. If you want to, I did send you the images last night, so if you want to take a minute and go find those, if you want to draw along. The first one is learning to observe first. And I'm gonna, it's only about 15 minutes, so I'm gonna play some segments and stop. And the images are screenshots that I took of the videos for you to be able to kind of follow along and do some sketching if you want to as well. If you want to save them and do them later, that's fine too. So this first one is, this is Carla's husband took these pictures. Wonderful, he's a wonderful photographer. But learning to stop and observe first. So the images that you could be drawing are, hold on. Well, I don't think I had one for this one, but you could work on the deer or any of them really. But just to stop and look at it. Look at the shapes, look at the colors, because we're not really going to do colors for the sketches, but look at the shapes and try to record it. The ear is back behind there, so that looks kind of funny. It looks like he's missing an ear on the right. Oh, you're not seeing it, sorry. There we go. So the ear is missing, but I'm sure it's just twitching back because that deer is on alert. So if you want to sketch this deer while you're watching, or if you want to just watch this first little segment, I think you'll really enjoy this guy. He's got quite a few videos on. Let me pull it up.
Blaze here, and as a lot of you know, I love to draw animals. I've been doing it for years, ever since I was a little kid. And you know, to get better at it, you have to draw from life. There's no other way around it. Drawing from life gives you something that photographs can't give you. It gives you an experience. You see the animal in 3 dimensions. All of these really add up to giving you a better experience. And this is something that I've done for years and years and years, and I'm always harping on it. But obviously drawing animals from life can be difficult because animals, they don't want to sit there like a model sitting in a studio. They move around. They've got their own agenda, and it's up to you to kind of follow them. So whether you're drawing them in the wild or drawing them at the zoo or drawing them in your house, if you're drawing your dog or cat, there's a few things that I've developed, I've figured out over time that help me when I'm sitting down to draw animals. So I thought I'd put together a little video today and talk to you about it. So why don't we get into drawing animals and some of the things that I keep in mind when I'm drawing, okay? The first thing, especially if you're going to the zoo and you're seeing animals that maybe you don't see every day, animals that you've never seen before, so many people, the first mistake they make is they get in there and they start to draw right away. I always, even though I know a lot of different animals, I'll go and I'll just sit there and I'll watch the animal. I'm looking at shapes, I'm looking at rhythms, I'm looking at flow, I'm looking at proportion, I'm looking at all these different types of things before I ever put down pencil to paper so that I can get a sense of this animal. So it's very, very important to just sit there and just relax and just soak it in and observe, okay? So that's the...
I'm going to pause right there for a second because I do this and learn to do this from Daniel Green with my models. before I jump right into a model pose. I just eavesdrop really on the model and watch him or her and try to, you know, sometimes they'll just take real comfortable characteristic poses that are just them, that really capture them instead of trying to pose them like I was talking about with the wedding. And then I'll act like I'm doing something else, and out of the corner of my eye, I'll say, oh, stop right there. And I might find a really beautiful pose just because they've been piddling with their clothes or trying to, you know, fix the chair or whatever. So this is not just for animals, but just sit and look at something before you start. Or if you're doing a still life, arrange it in different ways. Grab a bunch of stuff and throw a bunch of stuff on there, because we settle too quickly. We jump in, we're all harassed, and we just do the first thing. It's the same with thumbnails. It's like do 2 or 3 different thumbnail sketches, rough drafts of different possibilities. Like I'm going to crop it, I'm not going to crop it. But like he said, just spend a little bit of time with it before you jump right into it. I think this is great advice, first and foremost, especially with animals. So if you go to the zoo, and I think it'd be great, I would love for us to take a field trip sometime and go to the zoo and just sit and draw. We don't even have to cover the whole zoo. We can go to a couple different places and sit and just draw together. Wouldn't that be fun? I'm going to write that down. I think we should do it. Any thoughts or comments about this? Observing first. It's a good idea, isn't it?
Yes, great idea.
Soak it up. Figure out what it is that you love about it. All right.
Thing. Next, so this is kind of cool. This is what I do when I'm about ready to draw, or when I am ready to draw. I take a mental picture, and I don't mean just going, you know, like that. I actually have a method that I use to get a picture in my mind, and it's a weird thing, but I do it, and it really works. And maybe some of you do it, but what I do is I'll look down and I'll look up very fast at the animal and look down again. And what that does is it flashes an image in my head. I'm left in my brain very quickly with that last image that I saw of that animal, and I'll very quickly scribble it in. That's the first thing I'll do. So it literally is this. I go like that. I'll look up, look down, look up, look down, look up, look down. And if you do that, you'll be left with these little freeze frames in your brain. I know it sounds weird and it looks weird, but it works, trust me. And with more practice, you'll be able to get that image to freeze in your head, and you can jot it down really fast. And then once it's jotted down, once it's scribbled in, you can look at the animal again and start getting your details, start getting your proportions. You can start readjusting. But when you're drawing from life, especially with an animal that's moving, that's a great technique, is just taking that mental picture of that, and it works, trust me.
And taking a mental snapshot. So I know some of you are drawing. So there is this website called Memory Improvement Tips. This is where I found this following information. And it's similar to what he's saying, but it is some quick tips. One is to hold your head still, look at the scene with focus. And this is a scene. This is not a moving action thing, but just like looking at a rainbow, or looking at whatever it is, a beach. Look at the scene, tell yourself, it's important to remember the details, observe the colors. And it talks about just really soaking in the lighting, everything, just as much as you can. Blink your eyes slowly. Click your brain's camera shutter by blinking your eyes once at half speed. And otherwise, close and open your eyes at half the speed of a normal blink. Okay, and this is different from what Aaron said, but it's similar. Imagine hearing the click of a camera shutter as you do this. And I did this while he was talking, and it did freeze. His eyes were like this, and his eyebrows, you know, I got his face in my mind as he was talking. And I think that is, that's key, is just really focusing. Anything that you really focus on is different. You're more able to take it in. This was the other part of that website. It says intense focus, which is what we're talking about, is the key to creating clear and permanent mental snapshots. It requires mental effort. The more you practice it, the clearer, more detailed, and more permanent these mental images will become. Don't take dozens of snapshots at a time. Instead, invest maximum concentration on a few specific moments that represent the event. Like for sunrise, a single mental snapshot may be enough. Again, it comes with practice. And I'm gonna, well, I haven't seen it. I'm not sure I'm gonna do a recap today, but this website is called, where'd it go? Here it is, memoryimprovementtips.com, and they've got hyphens in there, so you could look that up. Any thoughts about this? Have you been able to do it as we've been sitting here? I mean, it's not something I don't easily, like, I don't have a great imagination. Like, I can't just draw things out of my head very well. So this is going to be a more of a challenge for me. But as you focus and try, like even right now, just to look at my cup of tea, I have a mental picture of that in my mind, just with the tea bag hanging there. So even if you can't reproduce it on paper, if you just start practicing this and thinking about what you're doing and looking at it, trying to keep that image in your mind. If you're working on a model I'm going to try to do some open studio sessions, or at least get to some open studio sessions soon. It's a great tip, because I'll walk up to the model and I'll look at something that I'm trying to get a detail on. I'll get back to my easel and I've already forgotten it. I don't know if you guys do that. I'll look away, I'll look at my photograph, and then I'll get back over there and something has interrupted my thought process and I can't even remember what I just measured. So I believe if we can take this habit and start using it more often to freeze frame something. And even if you just, like Peach was saying, even if you just practice that in the morning, and do a quick 3-minute, 30-second gesture drawing of it, you're going to develop that part of your brain. And I believe, and I haven't tested this, but I believe as we do that more and more, we'll be able to hold those images longer and use them.
I believe that, because our brain is like computers anyways, and I remember stuff that I see and I just never thought about drawing it or using that exercise. So I'm definitely going to try it.
Well, and he says here in this article, or this article talks about developing your ability through practice. The only way to find out whether it can work for you is to try it. And it says, if you think about it, your most lucid memories are probably associated with powerful emotion. Events linked to peak moments of joy, accomplishment, fear, or loss are usually recalled vividly without effort. And this is where, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, but this is where in this book, or maybe I have it on here, let's see. Yes, I did. In this other book by Max Lucado, same book, he talks about eternal instants. And it says, an eternal instant is an instant in time that has no time, a picture that is frozen in mid-frame, demanding to be savored, a minute that refused to die after 60 seconds, a moment that was lifted off the timeline and amplified into a forever, a moment that reminds you of all the treasures surrounding you, your home, your peace of mind, your health, a moment that tenderly rebukes you for spending so much time on temporal occupations such as savings accounts, houses, and punctuality. This is a stop. Try to teach yourself. It goes back to our inspirational segment, to really be aware of what's happening around you and deliberately take a mental snapshot of something you want to always remember. You guys probably have moments like that that you can remember. I can, they're usually something dramatic that was happening to me. Anybody have a thought about that? I mean, I see you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No thought. I'm in agreement with you for sure.
It's powerful to remember. I've watched my dad, who loves to talk about his Navy days now. All of a sudden, in fact, he was so excited yesterday to tell me he went to a memorial thing. And he said, there was a young kid there that wants to join the Navy. And he wanted to know all about my Navy days. It was like he finally found somebody that wanted to hear his stories. Well, I watched my dad, even though I've heard him over and over and over, I watch him light up. And I watch something in his spirit as he tells those stories that I believe is adding health because I want my daddy to live a long time. I pray that he will live long in this land. And because he's 82 and he said, oh, kid, I probably ain't going to be around too much longer. And I'm like, yes, daddy, I think you are going to be around a long time. I'm praying you into long life. But I believe that's adding health to him, to remember, to envision those moments in the Navy that he enjoyed so much, the things that he did. So not only is it a tool for us to help us with our art, but it's a tool for us to live longer, to enjoy our lives, to take these mental snapshots so that we go, oh, I want to savor this. There's a little verse in one of the New Testaments that talks about Mary, the mother of Jesus, and how she knew all these wonderful things, but yet she didn't necessarily have to tell everybody. It says she treasured all these things in her heart. She treasured all these things in her heart. And I think about that, if we would just make an effort to grab these moments and just enjoy them and save them in our minds and in our hearts, that what happy people we would be. We wouldn't be these grumbly, grouchy, politically opinionated people that are stomping around all the time and mad about something. We would have all these wonderful things stored in our spirits and our hearts as we made an effort to capture these things. So I'm back to the and interrupt me, please. I like to be interrupted on these things. Here's the last little snapshot that I took off that website, and it says how to take a mental snapshot. The secret to creating a vivid snapshot image that results in a clear episodic memory is attention. And so we have this problem of not being able to, of attention deficit. I think I have that a lot of the time. So you're at an event, you're soaking in the general situation, but perhaps without realizing it, you're not connecting deeply enough with these important and special moments. To create an episodic memory, you need to zoom in on those representative moments. For example, suppose you're attending a friend's wedding and you want to forever remember the moment they take their vows. During the special moment, concentrate intently on the happy couple and take a mental photo. The other day when I was photographing this little couple, there were 2 or 3 butterflies that kept flitting around. And so as I went back and watched the video, they were the sweetest little couple. I think I told you they're both very short, very heavy, very joy-filled. Their faces always just exude all this joy and happiness. And so these butterflies flitting around, they were on their hands while they were putting the rings on. The butterflies kept landing on their hands. So that was the thing that I zoned in on. The butterfly kept landing on my camera as I was or my phone as I was videoing. So what a sweet moment to remember about that day for them. So if I ever did a painting of them, I probably would stick a little butterfly in there somewhere. Because butterflies are just joyful, happy things. The last little thing, this website really kind of gives you a little bit more. I didn't get it down, but it gives you kind of a step-by-step, the blink your eyes to gaze intently. But really the most important thing is to stop and go zoom in, stop and zoom in of that moment. And then try to use the physical thing of blinking your eyes and hearing the shutter go. All right. Any thoughts? Are y'all going to, I'm going to give y'all an assignment to try that this week. I don't know how I'm going to hold you accountable to it.
Well, I'm going to do it.
I think it's good. I'm going to try to make myself do it as well. So
yeah.
Ostriches and so it's the same kind of idea when you go out to draw animals at the zoo. Is if you go in there with at least a basic understanding of animal anatomy, then that's going to help you. It's going to give you a leg up. And I don't mean, you don't have to be an expert on rhinoceroses and ostriches and tapirs and all these types of things. But there, you'll start to discover when you start looking at animals and you start looking at animal anatomy, you're going to start making discoveries like mammals that are four-legged have evolved to have, most of them have their legs underneath them, unlike lizards like crocodiles and reptiles like that have their legs out to the side, and they move a little differently and they're built a little differently. most mammals are built basically the same. If they're four-legged, they have, they have shoulder blades, they have an upper arm, they have a lower arm, they have all the same parts that we do. They even have all of the same muscles. They're just proportioned differently. And once you understand that, then you can start to understand when you're looking at an animal, oh, that's the shoulder. Oh, that's where the shoulder blade goes. Oh, that's where the trapezius muscle is. And all the different aspects that make up the basic anatomy of an animal, you're going to be able to kind of adjust that from animal to animal because it is basically the same. They all have the same muscles, with very few exceptions, the same muscles, the same bones, just shaped differently. And once you understand that, then you can start to apply it, and that will help you with your animal drawing when you're drawing an animal that you're not quite familiar with. And so, as we're looking through this, you can see that, look at the leopard, for instance, at the very top. If you look at that skeleton, you can see the shoulder blade, you can see the rib cage, you see the upper arm, the lower arm, all that kind of stuff. They've got all the same parts that we do, but go ahead and jump over to the deer. Well, you're going to see, okay, well, there's the shoulder blade, there's that rib cage, there's the upper arm, there's the lower arm, and actually, what looks like a knee on the deer is actually the wrist. So if you look at the pelvic area, the pelvis area, all of that is the same. It's just proportioned differently. And if we were to draw the muscles onto this deer, you'd also see that they're the same muscles as on the cat as well.
I'm gonna pause it there because I think that these kinds of drawings are really helpful. What he's saying is they're all basically the same. They're shaped a little bit differently and sizes are different. But you've got the skull, you've got the spine or the neck, you've got the rib cage, the joints, and I go further with these and draw circles when I'm drawing animals or anything. We talked about that with babies last month when we were drawing that Mary Cassatt painting. But just learning to see where the divisions are, like from on the back of this deer, from where the leg is hooked on, well, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 segments. And at each of these, I would put a circle right here where the joint is. But they're halfway. If you measured that, and I'll guarantee you probably almost every animal is like this. If you measured from right there at the body to the knee or whatever you would call that, then the knee to the ankle, those are exactly the same size. And if you just learn those basic things, and even imagine the skeleton underneath, like we studied the hand one time, and I was just really not aware that those bones come down to the wrist. So the hand bones really come all the way to the wrist. Once I saw that, the next time I drew a hand, I was like, oh yeah, I got to remember to show these little areas where the bones are, because I know what's underneath that now. So very, very valuable. I would encourage you to draw any of these, the muscles, the skeleton. I think it'll be really helpful to you no matter which animal you choose to draw. But say you're going to do a series like Don Whitelaw did of the cows, then I would look up a cow skeleton and then the muscle, and I would do a couple of quick drawings. They can just be 15-minute drawings or 10-minute drawings. But when you get ready to paint that series, you're going to do a much better job because you know what's going on underneath. Igor talks about leaving an anatomy, Igor Babalov, even leaving an anatomy book open in your studio. But you don't have to memorize every bone and muscle and tissue, but leave it open and look at it regularly. You're gonna be a better painter of people and figures if you understand the basic anatomy.
So once you understand that, like I said, then that's going to make your animal drawing a lot stronger. And then all you're doing when you're looking at a specific animal is looking for those things that make it specific, and then you just adjust what you already know, okay? So the other thing is I'm always, always, always very conscious of proportion. Here are some cats that I drew, some cougars. And I'm always looking at head to body proportions. I'm looking at length. I'm looking at the gaps between legs, the belly length. I'm looking at tail length to body. I'm always, always comparing all the different proportions to make sure that the, the animal comes out accurate. So many times someone will start drawing, let's say at the head, and work their way back, and they end up with something that either has a tiny head or a giant head. And if you kind of start on one end and then start jumping around, which is what I do, I start jumping around just for that reason. I can better control my proportions. And so I'm always making sure that proportions are correct. This is the other thing. I'm always looking for the big shapes first. And then, just like anything else, you go broad and then you start working towards the details. And it's the same thing with drawing animals at the zoo. In this case, here's a sleeping lioness that I drew. The first thing that I would have looked at is just that big overall oval shape sitting on the ground. And then from there, I would get into breaking it down to the rear leg shape, the shoulder shape with the head shape in there, slowly breaking it down. Then within the head, I find the eyes, and I find the nose, and I find the ears. Start broad and work towards the details. It's the same thing here. Everybody's seen, you start with the ball and then add the details. Well, there's truth in that, okay? And so in these bear head drawings that I did, all of these really started with a circle. When I first sit down to draw, I start with that circle, and then I start adding the parts, and it goes for the whole body as well, okay? You start with the ball.
I want to pause there a minute just to talk about, go back to this lioness. I think I sent you guys this image. If I didn't, I can send it to you. One of the things he talked about is what I drill in every single week is comparing. So comparing the length of the tail to the body, the belly area, because some animals just have a small belly from the in between the legs to the, some have much longer belly. So comparative, how big is the head compared to the body? How many heads could you fit in a body? Those are probably your key things about animals. You can use negative space, comparing parts and seeing how they compare to each other. And belly length, head size, tail to body. So those were the three things that I wrote down. And very important, because if you get the body too long, it looks funky. If you get it too short, it looks funky. The simple shapes here, again, is a repeating thing in all drawing. Look for simple shapes, circles, triangles, anything that you see, ovals. You're going to see a lot of those. You could probably do a whole animal with just circles and ovals.
The thing I do is I'll break up the body into different sections. The reason I do that is, one, it will help with proportions like we talked about earlier, but it's easier to control the drawing when I'm thinking about the different parts. And what I mean is, I'll usually think about the head, the neck, the shoulders and front legs, the body, the hips and back legs, and then the tail. I think of those as all separate elements. Keep in mind, I want to make sure that they flow together, but I always kind of see the animal in these distinct segments. It doesn't matter what kind of animal it is. I'm always looking for the hips and back legs, the body, the shoulders and the front legs, then the neck, and then the head. And one of the other reasons I think about that is, for another point that we're going to get into in just a minute, is that these are major parts of the body that will overlap. And so when you have foreshortening, a lot of times those are the shapes. It's the hips and rear legs, the midsection, the shoulders. Those are the shapes that you're going to see as overlapping shapes. Okay.
There we go. This probably helped me more than anything from his video. There's 6 segments here. So if you can train yourself to look at those individually, like he was saying, you're going to have a much more accurate drawing. Sometimes when the animal is foreshortened, you might only see just a sliver of the shoulder area. But if you can think about those 6 areas as you're drawing, you're going to make sure you get it all in there. It's really a key teaching right here. I feel like it's really, really important. So if you don't do any sketches of any of these images, this would be the one that I think will be most helpful to you. And listen, this is a pretty simplified. If you just squint and look at these shapes, you could draw this lion pretty quickly. No big detail in it at all. I love the illustration. I love that he's made it all different colors. So if you'll just take a mental snapshot of that right now, just look at it, you can go back and see it. Now, I'd like to, this would be a great thing to test yourself on. So take a mental snapshot and then see if you can remember the colors. Head is green, then blue-green, then blue purple, then red. So it's kind of like he's used the color wheel. Listen, again, just practice these things. They'll get more and more. I'm not going to show you the whole video today, by the way, so we've just got about another six or 8 minutes left on this segment. I feel like listening to him, watching him talk and show you these illustrations, and then you having the illustrations yourself along with some notes will help you really make these things more concrete.
The midsection, the shoulders, those are the shapes that you're going to see as overlapping shapes, okay? And we'll get into that in just a second. The next thing, I can't tell you how many people get in there and they just start drawing so tight. Get in there and don't be afraid to mess up. Drawing on location, it's not about creating a masterpiece. It's about observing and recording and adding to your visual library, that library that you keep in your brain. So many people ask me, well, how do you draw cats, out of your head? How do you draw horses out of your head? Well, it comes from sitting there and observing them and drawing them over and over and over again, and automatically it just starts to record in your brain. Now, I've done tons of bad drawings, and so it's not really about doing great drawings. It's about recording the information so that eventually, down the road, you do start to see the proportions correctly. You start to feel the details. You start to understand how to put that animal together without actually having to see that animal in person. And so all of that starts with being loose. I try to find the flow. I try to find the shape. I start broad and I work towards the details. Here's an image of a lion that I drew. This is a lion that I saw on location in Africa.
And it looks like he's just used some markers for this, and it's beautiful. And it's mostly just the head. The bottom of the lion isn't even defined at all. That's a key thing with animals that's not mentioned in this video, but typically you don't see animals' feet because they're usually in grass. So this animal, if it's in any kind of natural setting at all, it's in dirt or grass. And so that's the way the eye sees. You're going to be looking at this head and the back, following that long line along the head and the back. I'm pointing to it with a pen, sorry. So right along here is the most important part. And this pose you can tell that he's observed the animal first. He's just not got a stagnant pose. He waited until the lion turned around and you have that beautiful S shape. Much more interesting than just a lion sitting there. But there's a noise or something and the animal has turned. So that's the difference in you just being a scientific recorder and you learning to use your powers of observation and taking that mental snapshot to grab something that's really interesting and more dynamic than just, blah, what's right there in front of you. But I love this. But it's also easier for us not to have to draw the whole thing, finish all the toes and the toenails and all the blades of grass around the toes and, the claws or whatever you want to call them. Do you guys have an opinion about, do you like these more than a more finished? Or, they both have their place, right? But as artists, this is more, as you paint and draw more and more in your life, you become more in love with just the simplified version instead of having to dot every I and cross every T and tell the whole story. You love the beauty of this simplicity. All right, I just wanted to give you a moment. That would be another good one for you to do a study of. He does go into some rhythm and action poses here, so I'm gonna let it go back to the video.
Saw on location in Africa, and you can see the very first line I drew right through that body. You can see that S shape, and I wanted to build everything on top of that. Don't worry about the details. Those will come later. Draw loose, draw broad, and then you can attach the details later. Just like I was just talking about with the male lion that I just showed, I try to find flow and rhythm through the body. Try to find that gesture, because then it's going to give your drawing grace. It'll give your drawing fluidity, and you can attach details to it. So, for instance, these are some elephant drawings that I did, and as big and bulky as elephants are, one would think that, well, it's hard to find a nice gesture, a nice rhythm through their body, but it's actually just the opposite, especially with their trunk. That trunk provides them just this beautiful fluidity through their body. And you can see through these drawings, this is what I was trying to do. Look at the drawing in the upper left. You know, starting with the back legs, it flows right into the spine, which flows up through the head and right out the trunk. And with the other ones, with the trunks raised up in the air, you can see the same thing. And then the image with in the upper right, you can see, you know, starting with the trunk or the tail, you can go either direction. It just creates this kind of spiral circular pattern that just goes right through the body. And so I'm always looking for that first so that I can attach the details onto it. It's the same thing with drawing this tiger. Quite often I'll change the position of the tail to match that line going through the body so I can get this fluidity moving through. And you can see that's what I've done here in a couple of instances, especially the tiger on the lower left. I really wanted this S shape going through the body right up into the eyes, and so you can see that there. And then the one that's in color in the upper right, same thing. I wanted this S shape going right up through the body. So look for the fluidity, look for that line of action going through, and then start attaching the details onto it. Another thing that would help, that really helps, especially because you're looking at animals that are moving, and especially with four-legged animals, it's hard to understand what the foot placement might be. So if you go in there with a basic knowledge of animal locomotion and the way that they walk, then that's going to help you, because if you know that the right foot is on the ground and the left foot is reaching forward, then as an animator, I know that, okay, if the right foot's on the ground and the left foot's reaching forward, that means the left rear foot has just come forward, is on the ground, and then the rear right foot is on the ground but further back. I automatically know the placement of those feet. And so if you understand that, then it really helps with posing. You can get more accurate posing, especially with an animal that's in action. Well, obviously, if it's in action, a sleeping animal, you don't have to worry about it. But here, for instance, you can see as we move through these bear walk cycles and the cub running, there's very specific places that the feet land or when they're off the ground that are important to make that pose accurate, okay? The next thing, especially when you want to draw foreshortening, I use overlapping shapes to keep the drawing from flattening out. Now, if you'll remember, when we were talking about breaking the animal up into sections, this is where this really comes in handy. And if you look, just like I broke it up before, we're looking at the head, the neck, the shoulders and arms, the midsection, the hips and back legs, and then the tail. Look at how they all overlap. These are the cues that will give your drawing depth, okay? Those are the big overlapping shapes, and you can really see it here with, you know, with the hips and back legs moving forward or going back into space. We have the trunk and the back, and then it overlaps with the shoulders and the front legs, and then the neck, and then the head. That's really extreme, but it really shows what I'm trying to talk about. And so when you think about the animal in those terms, it's really going to make it a little bit easier for you to draw that depth. Now, it's important also not to, to make sure you're not drawing these really rigid segments. You want to make sure that it flows together, but if you think in these terms, then it's going to help your drawing. Here's another one that's not completely color-coded. That's kind of the same thing. And you can see that this is where I'm, in drawing this lion, I was thinking about the different sections of the body, from the tail to the hips and back legs, the midsection of the body, shoulders and front legs, well, in this case, the mane instead of the neck, and then the head. You can see all these shapes overlap completely.
Wait a minute.
It's kind of the same.
Okay, I want
to
pause right there again, because this is another excellent exercise for you to do on your own. But you can see the foreshortening. You can see how the head, look how narrow the head is. It's 1/16 of the whole body maybe. And then as it moves forward, they get larger. The sections do. This is the best way for your brain to grab these abstract foreshortened shapes, is to break them down like this and train yourself to see these. All 6 segments are represented here: the head, the neck, the shoulders, the belly, the hips, and the tail. So again, this helped me more than anything. Foreshortening is one of the hardest things that you have to try to do in your artwork. Whether it's an arm coming straight at you like this, and then you've got to try to record all these different pieces. And just practicing this will help you so much. So there's one more little segment on this, and then I'm going to stop, and I want to show you one other example. And I know this is even 2 hours. This seemed really long today. Anybody, have you drawn anything you want to share? No? Okay. I want to give you a chance to at the very end. This is on perspective. So I want to let you listen to that part out because it kind of goes right along with foreshortening. Watch your perspective and drawing a box around your subject.
Now, the next thing I want to talk about is perspective. This is another thing that people get wrong a lot. And you get so caught up in trying to find the details of the animal, you forget that that animal is sitting in space, and it's sitting on a plane, which is the ground. Or maybe you're looking up, it's on a cliff or something like that. But you want to make sure that you have that perspective right. In this case, I'm just showing that, an animal goes back in space. Those hips are going to line up with the shoulders. If there's perspective affects everything, not just, so many people think about perspective and they think about, okay, horizon lines and vanishing points and buildings that, recede into the sky or recede into the distance. But the same thing applies if you're drawing people or animals. Perspective applies. I have a line that goes across, that connect my eyes, that connect my nose, that connect my mouth. And if I move my head, all of that moves. And it's the same thing with animals. As they move their heads, their perspective is going to change. So you want to make sure that you keep an eye on your perspective. You have them sitting on the ground, and you're getting all the angles correctly, and all the different parts line up within those angles, okay?
Drawing a box over the different parts, even the legs, because you notice how, look at the back legs there. You can see that this top plane is facing the sky. Can y'all see my cursor? This is the side plane. You can see on this leg on the right, you can see the top plane and then the two side planes that face at an angle like this. The back, you can see top. Then if you divided that even further into planes, you could see a plane here that's facing sideways, at an angle upward and then sideways and then down towards the floor. So you could break that whole animal into planes, and it would be, you'll love your drawing if you start doing this. Print out the picture if you have to as you're practicing, and put a report cover over it and draw the planes first. Just trace the planes over the image that you're practicing on so that you can train your brain to begin to see these. The top of the head, especially an animal's face, their snout, the top plane, the side planes, the upward facing planes, the side planes, even the bottom plane of a nose or a snout. Key issues to getting good animal drawings and paintings. We're almost done. I'm going to stop the video now. And you have this image, so I would encourage you to draw that. And I want to go back briefly to something he mentioned on gesture and action poses. It's in my other PowerPoint. The pictures that I drew of or started on with Destiny, my granddaughter, before I started drawing, I picked them out. It took me some time to go through all the pictures and pick out the ones that really represented what I wanted to do. I wanted to show you what I did on the printouts. Okay, so you can see it in this one. Okay, so in this one, which is the drawing needs some corrections, but I drew an orange S through her body because I wanted to look for beautiful shapes. I wanted to remember those while I was painting. On this one, on the right, on my printout that I have out there in the studio, I drew an S here, around her head, over her shoulder, down through her little dress. See that S? And I wanted to remember that. So I went back, and I'm going to work on this further, but I sharpened this little dark spot here. I sharpened this a little bit, the side of her jaw, the front of her dress, and these are pretty sharp. So you still see that movement and that pretty S through that pose of her. Here is there are lots of spirals, the tire, but you can see that it goes this way, this way, this way, and kind of circles back around. And all these little repeating pom-poms that were on her scarf will be lots of little, everything's kind of round and circular in there. I'll minimize some of them, I'll strengthen some of them. But people don't know when they're looking at our artwork what it is. Some of this is just the joy of her expressions, and I have, again, they're kind of harsh, and I have to go back in there and clean some things up and blur some things, lots of things. But training yourself to look for beautiful design elements, like in these animals, he could have just done the animal standing there, but like on those lions, one of those images of all those different lions were just beautiful. All the shapes of the tails and the way the legs and the shoulders kind of had this beautiful rhythm and flow to them. We are after more than just being scientific recorders. But anyway, again, another takeaway from today is to spend that time observing, which is the first thing he said, looking for these beautiful shapes and rhythm and flow that's really beautiful. Train yourself to note that, to take a mental snapshot, to draw it on your reference photo. It'll improve your work. These are little tips that can instantly improve your work instead of something just being very stagnant and stiff. So, all right, let me look at the chat. How about next week at the zoo? I'm just now getting to that.
How about it?
Let me see. Let me organize it. I only have 2 days a week, 2 days a week with no kids. So, but yeah, let's just do it. Let's don't put it off. Shiva?
Can't wait for art class, and like the Zoom in general. Like this inspired me. I was like, okay, I'm excited to get back into art. Yes.
Good. I know I go on too long sometimes, and it gets kind of boring. You have to be interactive. You have to be moving around and doing stuff. So I think 2 hours is more than enough. Maybe even an hour and a half if we get done. So next week we're gonna cover more. We're gonna go into fur and hair, using silhouettes, getting personality and emotion in your drawings and your paintings. And then I'm going to take some requests for the last week. Anyway, so good to see you guys.
So
Have a
good to
great
see you.
week.